Today's aim may be incorrect by completing the square. If you wrote that, you're going to have the first three words correctly. You're going to solve quadratic equations, and then you're going to put with the quadratic formula. You've been using quadratic equations. The quadratic formula is a whole different ballgame. And I was kind of teasing this out last week of saying there's this fourth method that works every time. And it is extremely important in algebra to know this formula. You will have to memorize it. I will not always have it on the board. It's kind of lower on the board so you can't see it. Eventually I will have a poster so you can have it this week. First we're going to factor these polynomials, and I just want you to give me the factors of this one and then solve this one. Go ahead and do this in a minute. Factor these just like we have been doing for the last month. Just factor. And we'll see what we get. What is the first factor for my first example? Jordan, question or comment or answer? Yeah? I'm gonna pause you. So the factors of this first one are what? Jackson, factor out -2 and -8. Good. Okay, and it doesn't say to solve, leave it like that. Factor these and then we'll solve them, Sasha. 9 and 6. Good, yeah. And then if we wanted to solve it, we could have just said x equals -3. Tony.
How does this work every time? Because you can't always factor the quadratic.
You're not going to factor them. This step, I just wanted you to see that you can factor some things that are really easy. And then you're going to see later on you can't factor some things that you could use the square root or completing the square or this fourth method. We're going to use this example to plug into the quadratic formula to see if it works. Obviously, Wyatt, I'm not going to use this in the quadratic formula on a test if I have the choice, because it just is way easier. This took me about 20 seconds. But we're going to look at this first to make sure it does work, because with the quadratic formula, if you do it correctly, it should work every single quadratic you have. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If it's a perfect square, if it has a b value, it works every time. Here's what it is. It's used when the quadratic equation can't be factored into two clear binomials. It will work when you can factor them into binomials, but I wouldn't use it for this case like the first two examples. It's kind of like another option to use along with completing the square or taking the square root. It is the more popular out of those four or the bottom three methods. Here's your quadratic formula. You're going to write it, then I'm going to give you something to memorize it with. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 ac. For today, I'm just going to work on the steps. I'm not going to tell you how mathematicians got here, but there is a logical way that they got this to work. And we're going to see that probably later this week on Thursday or Friday. For now, this is just going to be kind of like our memorization day. Tomorrow you'll have a review day too. Here's how to memorize this gigantic looking thing. A undecided boy.
Wouldn't it be an undecided?
Yes, it's an English blender. An undecided boy. That's a -b. Was, sorry, doop, 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 doop. Keep boy. Write a sad boy. Was undecided, plus or minus, he wasn't quite sure if he should go to a radical party. A radical is the same thing as a square root. It also means pretty cool. And a sad boy, whoa. A sad boy was undecided if he should go to a radical party but his two, check your voice please, don't gotta add the distraction. His two friends that were boys, met for amazing chicks. And they stayed up until 2 a.m. completing quadratic formula problems. The 4 is always negative. This quadratic, check your voice please. Guys, I don't want to start just counting and throwing people out, so you can do this later, but this is really important. You need to check your voice. That is your formula that you're going to use every single time. That will work. Let's try it with this really easy example first. I'm going to look up at this and start piecing in the numbers. Before I begin, let's say what A is equal to. A should be 1, B should be 6, Elliot talking 1, and C should be 9. Let's plug it in. Negative B is negative 6. Undecided is plus or minus the square root. B is 6. Put 6 in parentheses in case it's negative. 6 squared minus 4. Times A times C is going to look like this. Put it in parentheses so it's multiplying. All over 2 times 1. This thing is hefty, it is huge, and it works for every quadratic, but it's just really long. So you're going to see that this answer was solved quickly. For this one, it's just pretty simple. I want to start here. It's going to take a while though. Go with the inside of the radical, inside of the square roots, and let's simplify that first. 6 squared is 36. Minus 4 times 1 times 9 will be minus a 36. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay. Let's head down and keep simplifying this thing. Negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 36 is 0. Kind of a weird one to start with, but it's okay. All over 2. Keep simplifying. The square root of 0 is 0. 0 times 0 makes a 0. So we're going to get 6 plus or minus 0 divided by 2. X is going to equal 6 plus 0 over 2 and 6 minus 0 over 2. It's really just 6 over 2. X should be equal to 3.
Why'd you get rid of the negative?
Let's check. Did we do something wrong? I made a blunder. Where's my blunder? Jordan, where's my blunder? Raise your hand before Felix marks it. Felix, where's my blunder? Right here, I left out a negative. It may or may not have been intentional. This method is great because it works. It is not great because you have to be very precise. If you're not precise and you leave out one single negative, the entire thing can be wrong. So it takes a long time, it takes a lot of precision, but it works. Negative 3 is the answer. Tony.
How come in some of the equations there's 2x values, but in this one there's only one?
Great question. We're going to get to that more on Wednesday. Because it's plus or minus, that's going to give you 1, 2, or no solution. Because plus or minus 0 got me the same thing, it didn't change any of the answers. Because negative 6 plus 0 and negative 6 minus 0 are the same thing. Tanner, Maya, talking 1. Great question, and if you got that, cool. If not, we'll get to it on Wednesday. 2x equals x squared, Sasha talking 1, minus 4. X squared has to be on the same side as all the other terms. I'm going to start out by moving my 2x. Subtract 2x on both sides. And you're going to get a new quadratic equation that you can solve. X squared minus 2x minus 4 works. Can you factor this? Turn and talk in 30 seconds. Yes or no? Go. Try to factor it first. Before you use the quadratic, you should always try to factor as what multiplies to -4 but adds to -2? -4 times 2 isn't going to be -4. I don't think that works. You got to have it multiply 4. 3, 2, 1. Factor it, thumb up. Don't factor it, thumb down. Give me your votes. Hands down. Most of us are saying no at this point. You can't factor this one. It looks very easy. It looks like I should, but it doesn't work. Let us head to the quadratic formula. List out what your A value is, what your B value is, and what your C value is. Okay. I'm going to have to flip back and forth to my quadratic a lot today until I can memorize it. My quadratic starts with -b. -b looks like this. Why did I put 2 negatives, Tanner?
Because it's already a negative.
Yeah, it's already a negative. And you have to have that -b. -b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Why did I put the -2 in parentheses? Why is it important to put it in parentheses, Sasha? Say it again. If I didn't have parentheses, it would look like that, which is -4. Because you need parentheses, it becomes a +4. It's completely different. That is extremely important. -b plus or minus the square root of b squared. What's the next step? B squared. Kieran, what comes next? Okay. Met for awesome chicks. -4. A is a 1. C is a -4. All over 2a. Cool, let's simplify it. -2 becomes a +2. Plus or minus the square root of -2 squared is 4. 4 minus 4 times 1 times -4. What is -4 times 1 times -4, Tony?
16.
+16. All over. I made a blender. Where's my blender? Tanner.
What?
Where's my blender?
You didn't add in the 4.
The 4 is right here. I skipped over it. -4 times 1 times -4 is +16. All over 2a. Okay, go step by step now, and let's simplify it one more time. 2 plus or minus the square root of 20 all over 2. Yeah.
Oh, so now can you just cross out the 2 2's?
We could simplify it, sure. So this is like 2 and 2 cross cancel, which makes a 1 over 1. And you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 20. If your answers have the square root of 20 simplified, know that it is also the square root of 20 and you probably got it right. If it has something like this, 1 plus or minus 2 root 5, this is the same thing. You just don't know how to simplify yet. So I'm going to go on the answers when you get to bronze in your homework and make sure you know what that part would be. Okay? It will say this, but that is not what you have to do today. There is your answer. You can't simplify it any more than that with the knowledge you have. Yeah, Tony.
No.
Okay. Let's see. Cool. Your turn for these two. I want you to work on not being robotic. If you can factor one of these with 2 binomials in about 20 seconds, I want you to factor it. If you can't factor it, I want you to use the quadratic. You have 3 minutes to sort these two out. Go. Can you factor the first one? What multiplies to -7 but adds to -7?
71.
What's the negative and what's the positive? Yeah. Factor it, solve it. That took me about 20 seconds. If you finish one, you can move to number 2. Um, 14 negative 8. Oh. Yeah. I can't do that because the A is a 2. So it would have to factor in the 14 and negative 8. All right, let's do a quick check. Then I'll give you 2 minutes to finish number 2. Number 1, if you factored it, give me a 1. If you didn't factor it, give me a 2. Hands down, what is the answer if I factored it, Wyatt? Give me the 2 factors. What multiplies to negative 7 but adds to negative 6? What times what is 7? Okay. And what would add to negative 6? Where's my negative going to be? Okay, if you have a negative 7 plus a 1, why this is a really great blunder to make, and a great point of just pausing, because as you're learning the more complex things, you also have to be able to pull out the more common method we've been practicing for the last month. So don't lose this step. You need to know how to factor pretty fluently. If you don't, we're going to get a lot of practice in this next week too. So your answers would be 7 and negative 1. That's what I would use for that problem. Can I factor number 2? Well, remember that the A is bigger than 1, so you have to do 7 times 2 if you're going to use the grouping method. Does something multiply to 14 but add to negative 8? No, negative 6 and 2 wouldn't work because that's 12. So I'm negative 6 and negative 2 is also 12. I can't factor this one. I'm going to use quadratic for this. With your partner, go ahead and set up the quadratic formula and solve. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Don't cross out 64 and 56. No, just cross out the things that are outside of square root.
Because I was actually looking at my paper, trying to figure it out. Yes, you do. Oh my god.
Calm down. Yeah, broken.
I'm gonna say it again. Y'all know what? No. I don't know. Make sense for you, Jim? No? I know, it's gonna be really annoying. But I get to do my basketball first time in a good set. Wow. Shut up. Hell yeah. Oh, I forgot you had it. You don't have it. What did you say?
Oh, yeah.
I have to go to a baseball practice right after the gym. So funny.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's a hitting. I don't have to. Shut up, Kylie. Kylie's just salty that Sarah's like, that's 56. It's 56.
Thank you.
You're not welcome.
Where are you getting the negative 8 from?
Is it -7?
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Maya, answer the question. How is 8 negative?
Tanner, we're gonna pause and work on this together. You're about at a little bit beyond this, but when I get to the part you don't have, write it down, okay? Cool. I'm gonna cold call and also make some blunders. There's a lot of common blunders that pop up because the detail of this has to be precise. If I cold call you and you make a blunder, that's great because we need to be dissecting those too. I'm also gonna purposely make some. Mariah, what's my first step after I write what the A, B, and C are? Good. Okay. Okay. And then what's the bottom look like, Mariah? Okay. I'm going to simplify this. -8 is +8. Plus or minus -8 squared is 64. 4 times 2 is 8, times 7 is 56. What's my blunder, Sasha? Because that negative sign is there, it's really a -4 times the 2, which is -8. -8 times 7 is -56. Common blunder, if you made it, go ahead and rewrite it. 8 plus or minus the square root of 8. Over 4. We're going to try to simplify this thing. I can cross out the 4 and the 8 and cross cancel those, make a 2 and a 1. Why can't I cross out square root 8? Why can't I cross out that? Elliot? It's not actually 8. So it doesn't, like 4 won't go into this decimal. If you take the square root of 8 with a calculator, it's going to be like, I don't know, 2 point something probably. That doesn't work. So leave it as square root of 8. This is as simple as it gets, or you can just write it as 2 plus or minus root 8. Your answer might say 2 plus or minus 2 root 2. If it says that, I will put the answer as that for today. If you got 2 plus or minus root 8 all the way through and finished it, give me a thumb up. If you weren't quite there, give me a thumb sideways. Meaning like you just didn't get all the steps or you got it wrong. Cool. Hands down. We're about 50-50. These problems take a ton of practice. You have 10 minutes to get, nope, you have 7 minutes to get practice done right now. Try to finish maybe one of these and check the answer. I'm going to put the correct answer on the board. It should be good for number 9 and 10. 11 and 12 looks good as well. Yeah, all of these should get the right answer. You don't have any to simplify that you don't know how to do. Yeah.